Now let's cross to the former Resources Minister, now Nationals MP Keith Pitt, joining us from Canberra. Good to talk to you, Keith. Honestly, what's your climate catastrophist name?
It might be Keith Rain on their parade pit. I think might be the way to go, Chris.
Well, it would be Keith leave the coal in the pit, I reckon, is what it would all be about. Now, tell us on a much more serious issue, your thoughts on this plan to tax coal and gas exports in order to subsidise energy prices, energy costs at home.
Well, we've seen this movie before, Chris. And I think federal Labor just have no idea what to do. If they did, it would have been in their budget a couple of weeks ago. And they've reached out to those policy geniuses in the Greens. And if you make money, well, you'll get taxed more. You imagine where this will go. I mean, this is socialism 101. So you've got a poor farmer that might be busting their backside for 20 years and get a cracking season one year. And they decide that you've made too much money from cotton or too much money from wheat or too much money from some other product you're exporting. All of a sudden you get a smacking great tax bill, so that can be redistributed to others.
But we've deliberately made their products scarce. We've deliberately curtailed their production. That's been the aim of our policy, to force coal and gas out. And now we want to tax the exports. It's insane. I'm
particularly worried about Queensland because the Queensland Labor government increased royalties on coal up there by as much as 40%, a $15 billion additional take. And now federal Labor will smack them again. It'll put a lot of those mines underwater. They just won't be profitable. And where does this go? So I think the industry will fight, as they should. And the reality here is really straightforward. It won't matter how much they get out of the big exporters for gas. They can't get it to Victoria and New South Wales anyway. You need Narrabri online. You need to extend the Bass Strait. You need Victoria to actually go and develop their own.
Well, they're going to spend money, right? They have to spend money because otherwise pensioners in this country, people on fixed incomes, are not going to be able to put food on the table over the coming year with power prices going up. So Labor has to find some way of giving them money. Do you say they should just borrow more rather than tax these profits?
No, I'm saying they should fix up the electricity pricing, which is a result of their policies. You keep closing very, very valuable coal-fired power stations that have generated for decades at very low prices and high reliability. You replace it with something which is intermittent, and guess what? The price goes up because there's not as much available.
Yeah, but hang on, this was happening. You're in government for 9 years. This was all happening under your policies as well, and you'd signed up to net zero by 2050 as well.
Oh, Chris, we were always going to sweat the coal assets for as long as possible, which is what should happen. We've seen early closures announced now. You've got a lot coming out of the market next year in New South Wales in particular, and people are forecasting what the price will do, and that is up by 56%. Labor said what they will do. That's spend a whole heap of money on 14,000 kilometres of transmission. That's half the price of an electricity bill for a domestic customer. It has to go up. And it's a result of their policies.
Yeah, but if Labor were to do this, it would be a clear, broken promise, wouldn't it? This would be just a rerun of the whole Julia Gillard no carbon tax argument.
Well, they've put a carbon tax now from what it looks like onto coal, oil and gas. But these are just fundamental decisions around the network. You've got states that haven't developed their own assets, and in fact, they've demonised them, particularly gas in Victoria. Now they've run out and it's all someone else's fault. Well, unfortunately, the Australian taxpayer is the one that gets it in the neck. And you imagine what this does to our sovereign risk if they actually do this. People have invested billions of dollars based on the playing field at the time, and now because they think they might be making too much money. Well, they weren't lining up when they were all making a loss, mate, to give them a rebate. I've got to tell you that.
Keith, just before we let you go, we've been able to put your name into the climate catastrophist name generator.
Of course you have.
And apparently your name is Keith Freaky Floods Pitt. So there you go. You're the one to blame for the floods over the past couple of years.
I'll have to get a tattoo.
You will indeed. Thanks for joining us. Keith Pitt, the former Resources Minister there.